Hello and good morning. My name is Brandon Gum. Today we're going to be talking about how to use global cut planes in AutoCAD MEP. This workflow is going to aid you in developing 2D floor plan drawings from a 3D model. Specifically, global cut planes only work with AEC objects in AutoCAD. AEC objects are things like pipes, ducts, conduit, cable tray, walls, doors, columns, and as well as multi-view parts. If it's one of those objects, global cut planes are going to help you to be able to cut a cut plane and isolate things such as the first floor, second floor, third floor. And it's going to give you a framework to work around when you're trying to generate 2D drawings. And so after this video, I'm going to show you how you can combine this along with horizontal section cuts to really get the best of both worlds. One of the drawbacks of using global cut planes is they do require the use of multi-view parts for your equipment. So let's say you've got a pump or you've got a chiller. You're gonna have to make that a multi-view part if you want your global cut plane to be able to cut it properly. And if it's not a multi-view part, then you should start looking at other solutions, and that's what I'm gonna cover in our next video. But we're gonna move forward with this. And so what I've done here is I have a 3D model, which is right here, and then I've cut section cuts all the way around it. That's this purple and pink box that you see. And what I've done is I've generated, sorry, excuse me, a little bit of performance issues here. I've generated all these floor plans here. And then what I've done is I've then taken my AEC objects and I have duplicated them on each layout. And so what I'm then going to do is I'm then going to set up paper space drawings that have their own layout configuration, that have their own cut plane. So if you're not familiar with layout configurations, down here, display configuration. Down here, since AutoCAD MEP is style-based, you have these display configurations. Right now, I'm using Thermaltake Plan. A pretty standard one out of the box is probably going to be something such as standard. That is controlled up here in the display manager. You can normally get to it on your ribbon via the manage tab. I am running a custom GUI, so everything I have you may not have. And we can start to see when I look at the display manager and I look at like walls, for example, I'm able to actually adjust how my walls are being displayed when they are above or below the cut plane. And this is very powerful, especially with piping, for example. Like, let's say you're showing the piping on the very first floor, but for whatever reason, you also want to be able to show the piping on the second floor, but maybe you want to show it dashed instead of solid. And the global cut plane and the settings that correspond to it allow you to do that. So in order to, you'll notice here that I have settings such as below cut plane, above cut plane. I'm literally able to adjust how my objects are being displayed relative to the cut plane at any point in time. And now I'm looking at pipe, and pipe actually takes it a couple steps further. Here, there's contour below, low, high, above, or if you're in single line representation, again, below, low, high, above. And so this is very interesting. And this is I'm now able to say, hey, if it's above the cut plane, I can just straight turn it off, so I'm not able to see it. Or I can also do some sort of layer override, or I can change the line type from, instead of being by block or by layer, I can change it to, be a phantom line, be dashed. And so this kind of gives us a lot of power in what we're able to do with our global cut planes. And in order to use a global cut plane, the very first thing you do need to do is you need to turn on display by elevation on. Its default setting is typically off. You can have it to be always on in your template, so anytime you're trying to use it, just go ahead and turn it on. And what that does is it gives you those options in display manager that we just looked at, that is the above and the below. Because if I turn this off, I believe when I come back over here to display manager, you are no longer going to see those settings in the piping object. So this is display manager, not style manager. And then see now, I no longer have single line, above, low, high, and hidden. Or yeah, you get the idea. So display by elevation is going to enable those very important attributes for us. Okay, we're just going to turn that back on. And so I'll go ahead and show you what I've done here. and we're going to go over a quick example here in just a moment. But so this is my very first floor view, and then when I double click in here, you can see down here my display configuration right now. It says that it's Thermaltake plan, but technically my viewport is actually called first floor. So when I double click in here, you can see that it's now actually on the first floor, which is interesting. And now I'm actually able to adjust my global cut plane right here, I believe. And it's saying that this is what the global cut plane is for the very first floor. There's a few ways to set this. There's a few ways to make this. Right now, we'll just turn our attention to the AEC objects. That's going to be this piping and this ductwork. And we're going to compare how it looks to the second floor. Second floor, you can see that the piping is no longer there and less of the ductwork is there. Third floor, I think the cut is hardly any higher there. And then fourth floor, apparently we were still seeing duct. So I have not messed around with this very much, but you know, I guess for you to really understand how this is all being cut, you need to understand my cut plane levels. So we're not going to get into that right now, but you can see kind of the strategy you would employ. So each one of those layouts actually has its own level on it. And the way that you go ahead and you do that is you just come up here to Display Manager and make it easy, just do it in model space. And we're going to actually open up configurations. The difference between sets and configurations can be a little tricky. I believe configurations reference sets. So I believe that configurations is your highest in your hierarchy here. And so all I did was, for example, if I wanted to make a fifth floor, we can just copy this fourth floor and paste it. And we would just rename that to fifth floor. And I actually got, if you're wondering where I started from, it appears that I started from our Thermaltake plan because that's what we already use. That's kind of how all of our standards are set up. So I just done a copy of that, and that's how I made his first, second, fourth, and fifth. And so here you can see that on the cut plane tab, I'm actually able to adjust my cut plane per each configuration, which is interesting. I just go down the list, and so fifth floor here, I could change this to be something else if I wanted. So that's how you go ahead, and that's how you set that stuff up. And again, to apply it, all you do is make your viewport, and then you just double click in your viewport, and then you set your display configuration right there. So we'll take this to another example here, and we'll take a look at some walls. And what I've done here is I've drawn a two-story home, and the very first story has walls that are 10 feet high. And currently my cut plane is at 5 feet 6 inches, and display above range is 13 feet. I'm going to turn on display by elevation. And what that's going to now allow me to do, it's now going to allow me to come into Display Manager. It's going to allow me to look at the walls representation by objects. So I'm interested in walls right now, walls and doors specifically. And I know that I'm using the plan view. So I'll double click on plan. And now you can see that I'm able to adjust how this is represented above or below my cut plane. And so above my cut plane, I don't want to see the second story. So I'm actually going to turn that off. And I think when I first came in here, you did see if you rewind, you'll see that you actually could see the second story. And so now if I actually adjust my cut plane, let's say that this actually is the second floor drawing. What I can do here is just put that to 10 feet since the first floor ends at, 10 feet 6 inches since the first floor ends at 10 feet. And now you can see that I'm actually able to see both of them. Why? It's because my display below range is all the way down to 0 feet. But if I put that to 10 feet 1 inch, I should no longer be able to see that very first floor. That's exactly what happens. You can notice that this only affects displays when you are in a plan view, I want to say. You don't have to be in paper space, but you just have to be in a top-down view, and the global cut plane will work effectively. So that's a little bit of overview of the global cut plane. I hope that helps. A very few key concepts. If you have a 3D model of a chiller and it is block-based or 3D solid-based and it is not a multi-view part, your global cut plane will not be able to cut that like it would other objects. It needs to be a multi-view part in order for it to be cut. And that poses a challenge for me in particular, because I find multi-view parts difficult to work with. For example, if you have a multi-view part and you need to make a change to it, add some detail, change some sizes, you pretty much have to create an entirely new one. And you're not able to take a multi-view part and just burst it. I'm pretty sure in that. You have to save the original 3D entity prior to making the multi-view part. And if you need to make any changes, you have to pull that 3D entity up and make your changes to it and create a whole new multi-view part. It's a very roundabout way. I'm not a big fan of it, and that's why in the next video we're going to be talking about how you can use horizontal section cuts to actually generate your 2D floor plans from your 3D drawings. And then we'll then leverage the use of the cut plane in there with it. That way you're then able to cut your AEC objects. Earlier when I was showing you this layout here, this model, other than I guess this conduit that's in here, which is actually from Revit, this model does not have any AEC objects in it, other than I guess there's some walls in there, I suppose, but all the pipes and the ducts are actually have been moved over to where the individual floor plan drawings are. That way I can do my global cut planes on that. So this is just a workflow that I'm using right now. I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, just let me know.